Disclaimer, sorry about your toes because I'm probably going to step on a few. Listen, you are living in a time of smoke and mirrors and ones and zeros, and it's about time to wake up. Files and UFOs and war, oh my. I don't know about you, but here recently I feel like I have stepped into the twilight zone. I mean, it is just a constant bombardment of things on the daily that are just happening in this world all around us. And man, trying to keep up with it all is quite the feat. And honestly, it has the tendency to wear you down, if I'm being honest. And so you really have to back away from it all every once in a while and just disconnect, because it's just so much anymore that it really has the power to bring you down. And so we really have to be careful of that. Now, although we are in a war with Iran, and I'm sure everybody is now aware of that, that's not the war that I would like to talk about here today. Because the reality is we're actually in another war. And this war that I would like to talk about, see, we all play a different role in this war, because regardless of whether or not that war with Iran is something that you agree with, whether you're pro-war or anti-war, that doesn't matter in this war, because this one happens to affect us all. And whether you like it or not, we are all on the front lines of this war. And that war is the war for your mind. Folks, we live in the information age. And you know the old saying, ignorance is bliss. But with where we're at now, intentional ignorance is disgraceful. And to stay in that place of ignorance when all the information is out there is honestly a disservice to yourself and everybody else. And it's a big part of how we got here today. Not paying attention and being aware of the realities that are all around us. Like I mentioned in the beginning, these files that were released, if you're familiar at all with any of the information that's been found in them, then you will know that the picture that has been painted in front of us is pretty grim. And it gives us a glimpse into what's going on at the highest levels of the control structure of this system that we are all a part of. And it's about time, I think, that we all wake up to that fact. And so let's talk about this war that we're all very much in. See, it's a psychological war. It's mental warfare. And so we need to first understand that we are, in fact, in a war for our minds. Then we need to understand who it is that we're at battle with. Who is it that's the enemy here? And then we also need to understand the arsenal, the weapons that are used against us. And let's understand that the battleground is the information. And so if we can come to that understanding, then we can slowly start to see the tactics that are used out of their little playbook here to try and defeat our minds. As far as this war, I think it's becoming clearer and clearer that it's not just a physical war for our minds, but it's also a spiritual war. And I think it's very important that we understand and grasp that concept, that it is just as much spiritual as it is physical. And as far as getting you to understand that you're in this war, I mean, I'm not so sure that there's a whole lot I can do. But if you're not seeing it now for what it is, I'm not sure you ever will. Because it's more blatantly obvious today than it ever has been. And so hopefully you see it and see it for what it is. Secondly, the enemy. We need to understand that we aren't enemies with each other like they would like us to believe. You know, the red and blue teams, the right and left, the Republicans and Democrats. That's all been fabricated to steal our power, because another one of their tactics is division. See, the concept of divide and conquer has been around forever when it comes to warfare. And it's no different here with this warfare mind. Because they understand that if they can keep us divided on all these topics of information, well, then we'll never be united. And it's in that unification where there's true power. And since we aren't united and we're divided, well, that power is now with them up here. And we need to understand that that is the enemy. Not each other, but it's up here. This battle is from the top down, not from side to side. We are all in this same thing together. And the sooner we wake up and realize that this is just another tactic, this tactic of division, it's just another tactic that's being used to steal our power and to keep us in this place of suppression, because they just keep pressing us from the top. And then let's talk about some of these tactics, you know, the weapons of this mental warfare, because it is a psychological war, and they understand this, and they understand psychology very well. And this battle has been waging against you since you were just wee little, you know, through all of the media that you've consumed over the years, you know, through Hollywood and through the music industry and all these things that we can clearly see now, hopefully, for what they are: absolute corruption. It's all been used to program you and to desensitize you and to condition you into this way of thinking that we have all been a part of this entire time, hopefully until now, when we awake to the reality. And luckily, since about 2019, a lot more people have woken up to this reality, and that's a great thing. But we have a lot more to go, a lot more. And just another interesting fact about this war: we are on the defensive here. This is a defensive posture that we need to be holding in this war, because they're the ones that are on the offense, and we are simply on the defense. And you might be able to say that by speaking out like this, which I encourage everybody to do, because without a voice, what else do you even have? But you could maybe say that this is offensive, maybe. But for the most part, we are on defense here. And the best way that we can battle against this is by understanding these tactics, these weapons, their arsenal that's being used against us. And so for a long time, it has been the landscape of the media, the mainstream, Hollywood, music, you know, all of these things, they've all been used to control us in one way or another, mentally. And since the release of these files, hopefully people can see that more clearly now. Because in many cases, these are the people who are involved. You know, politicians, you know, all these elite people of the music industry and the movie industry and politics and just, you know, highest levels of science and all these, just all these things, you know. These are all the people that are involved in this. And so the fact that the control is coming from that area should be telling us something. So when we talk about these files, hopefully you have become acquainted with them a little bit, enough to know that what was found in them gives us a glimpse into the spiritual nature of this whole thing that's happening around us. Because there is a low vibrational, low frequency, vile, disgusting, evil energy that is at work behind all of that. And it is that they don't want you to know about. The occultic nature of all of these things that are taking place and how they relate and tie in to the ancient text of the Bible and things that were going on thousands of years ago. These things aren't new, folks. Nothing is new under the sun. They've just been happening in the shadows this whole time until now, when hopefully these things are now being brought out into the light. But another tactic that's used as division is distraction. Because see, they understand it, and it's actually like an art form to them. It's the art of distraction. Because like I said, psychologically, they know how these things work. And the art of distraction is a very simple method. I mean, just think about how this works. Hey, look over there. And while you're over here, they're over here doing something else. And just like when this information came out with these files, oh, here it comes. Here comes all this information. Right alongside it comes a disinformation campaign. Another one of their tactics that you need to be aware of. Because it goes out right along with the truth to muddy the waters so that you don't get too close to understanding what's actually going on. And then distraction, right? Because the files are out for a couple weeks. They see that it is taken off like a wildfire and that everybody's going down all these different rabbit holes and digging up the information and bringing it into the light. And they just can't stand it. And so what do? Oh, we're going to release UFO files. Look at this golden egg over here, everybody. But you know what? From what I saw, no one cared. People weren't biting on that one. No, we're going to stay right here in this lane because there's something here. And this something that's here is way more important than anything else right now because it's giving us a clear glimpse into this reality that we are all a part of. And what is happening at the highest levels and at this level of control of this system. And so, yeah, we need to keep our eyes on that. But it was an attempt at distraction for sure. Very conveniently timed. Yeah, we're gonna bring out this UFO disclosure a week and a half after we release these files. How convenient. And since it didn't appear that everybody bit onto that, I'm sure some people did because there's a lot of people fascinated with that topic. But for a lot of people, they stayed in the lane they were in, chasing after these files. And you better believe that a big weapon in their warfare is data collection. They are watching every single thing you see and every single thing you say. And that's only progressing and getting worse and worse with time. Especially as we enter into this age of AI. And so they know what people are looking at. They know what people are talking about. You better believe it. And so it didn't work like they had hoped, obviously. And then within another week or two, boom, here we are in war. Well, that took over the media, didn't it? Well, it did. It took over the mainstream for whoever's still watching that nonsense. And it took over a big portion of the alternative media. But what this does is it gives us a good picture of who the real truth seekers are and who the ones are that we should actually be listening to. Because when you have the biggest story of a lifetime, well, true journalists, that's what they chase after. The story of their lifetime. And for those true journalists, they recognized what was in those files to be just that. And so they stayed in their lane. And they're not chasing after this, because what comes with all the discussions around that war is more division, which is exactly what they want. They want all the discussions around the information to be divisive. And that's exactly what you see happening, isn't it? More division. And so they just keep splintering us up even more and more and more on each one of these topics of information. And that's exactly their game plan. Because they know if we would all stay in this lane and unite on these files, they'd be in big trouble. And so yeah, hopefully you people are seeing it for what it is. It's out in the open. It's so predictable anymore, and it's so easy to see. And as we go on in this, their weapons, they're not as effective and as efficient as they once were. They don't work on everybody anymore. And they're realizing that too. And they realize that they're starting to lose control. We need to keep our eyes on those files, I'm telling you, because they are a glimpse into what is actually going on in this reality. And the fact that it is spiritual. Very much so. And that is what they want to keep from you. You better believe it. Because just like they find their power in their negative energy, well, they know that there's even more power over here if you come into the energy of the Most High. So they definitely want to keep that from you. You can bet on it. Lastly, I just want to leave you with something to consider here. When we're talking about division and distraction and all these different methods that are used, and we're talking about this war and the convenience of the timing of it all, something else that has become clearly evident in these files is that the whole main objective behind all of that stuff that happened with that person and that island and those files, it's our greatest ally, the one that we're fighting in this war, side by side with, right? Our greatest ally. Well, it has been made clear that that individual was working for this intelligence over here. And probably even our own, who knows. But definitely involved on that side of things, coming from our ally. And so the whole reason for this was blackmail. Clearly, obviously, there's no way around it. And so if that was the whole agenda behind all of that, well, then we really ought to consider the timing of this war, right? Because I think it's very curious that these files even came out at all, because they've kept them from us for a very long time, and I don't think that they wanted these out. Yeah, Trump and his administration and all these people, saying that they were going to do it, but once they came out, it was clear that they were not happy with it, and that they were trying to wrangle as much of it in as they could, trying to retract as much information as they can. It was clear they didn't want it out. So what happened? What, you think it's just because a couple congressmen were demanding transparency? You really falling for that? I don't buy that for a second. There was some other mechanism at work here that allowed these files to be released. And I think that there was some form of control over it from our greatest ally over here that pushed and made that happen. Whether that was in the form of swaying the votes, in the form of, the congressional votes for releasing the bill, or whatever it was that created the avenue for this information to come out, I don't know. But I have a feeling, and I'm not saying this is a fact, I'm just saying you better be putting your critical thinking caps on and thinking outside of the box, because you are in a war for your mind. And so I think that the timing is very curious of these things. These files get released. Clearly, this administration wasn't happy about it. It wasn't like they pushed to have this released, and once it came out, you didn't hear them saying, "Here, folks, this is what we promised you on the campaign trail. This is what you wanted. Here you go. Just giving you more of what we said we'd give you." No, that's not what we're seeing here from this administration. Open your eyes. They were clearly not happy with this information coming out. And so, isn't it curious that within 2 to 3 weeks of that information coming out, now we are in a war with Iran? And one that they clearly admitted to not even being prepared for. Like it was almost like this, we went into this on a whim. They've admitted it. I've heard them say it on the mainstream. I've heard it out of their mouths. So, doesn't that begin to possibly paint the picture that the reason that we went into this war is deeper maybe than what is on the surface? Do you think that maybe there's a possibility that out of the 7 times that their leader, Netanyahu, has been to the White House here recently, that last time he didn't say, "Listen here, Trump, got something to whisper in your ear there, old pal. We got these released, and the other half is way worse than words on paper or in an email." Because what I've heard is that what's to come, what's in the rest of those files, is actual visual evidence in the form of video and photos and whatever else type of media. It's visual evidence, and they definitely do not want your eyes seeing that. So what do you think the chances are that old Netanyahu whispered in his ear, "Here's what you're going to do. You're going to go do this thing with us in Iran, or we're going to release the rest of these files." And that first batch being released was released for leverage. To let them know they're not playing around. You better consider all things, folks. That's where we're at. Nothing is beyond the realm of possibility anymore. So you better stay open to it all. Also keep in mind that Netanyahu realizes that once Trump's out, his likelihood of having this happen, because he's had a hard-on for this thing with Iran for a long time. He's been saying they were on the brink of nuclear weapons for the last 30 years. I've listened to clips. They're days away from this nuclear weapon, hours away in even one of the videos. And they've been saying that for 25 or 30 years. He knows he has a window here to work with this president to make it happen. So you don't think he would use that as leverage? After all, that was their man, wasn't it? The whole thing was to put power in their hands in the form of blackmail. So if you think this is outside of the realm of possibility, maybe you're the one that needs to check yourself. Seems pretty legit to me. Anyway, as always, this is Sorry About Your Toes. Sorry if you stepped on. We're out.